Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this show. Today, we're going to be talking about what if your home could be your caregiver. So, this conversation today actually comes from one of our longtime listeners, viewers of the show, Diane, who runs a really cool part of a non-for-profit called Kids Feeding Kids, which is amazing. And Diane actually came to us. She said, "Hey, would you mind doing a show about this? I've written a little something about the topic, and I'd be curious to see what you guys discuss about it." So the idea being that we're at the intersection of aging and autonomy, and of course AI. This show, and it's really bringing up really important questions like, can an AI infused home of today, of tomorrow, of the near future truly support aging with dignity? Or will they surveil us into submission? Will AI actually make it worse in some ways? What does it take in today's world to age in place and not have to go to, maybe the typical assisted living and then perhaps nursing home and then perhaps full-time care thereafter, depending on what people are dealing with in later age. I know this is something that's really important to Diane. I also know it's something that's really important to my dad, who's talked about this quite a bit and wanting to, age gracefully in his own house and things that are important to him that he's conveyed to me and my brother. And so it's a good opportunity today to just talk about where we are today, where we think AI could take us in the near term, future AI abilities. Yes. Embodied AI, robots, the whole thing. Rosie the robot, is that part of it? Can she give me my pills? Can she make sure I don't miss anything? Can she change my bed sheets? These kind of things. So we'll talk about all of that. The future possibilities, also where we are today in terms of wearables and the Apple Watch and what we can currently do today to help out with that. And of course, we want to bring in a lot of Diane's thoughts on this, of which she has quite a few, which I think are really important. So today is August 7th, 2025. This is the Daily AI Show. And I am I'm joined by Beth, Andy, Jimmy, and Brian. But Beth is welcoming me, so that's nice too. Thanks, Beth. And I also want to point out before we dive into this topic that if you're listening to us live today, well, then know that we are going to be back later today because Sam Altman, after a bunch of hype here over the last couple of days, basically said, hey, there's going to be a live OpenAI announcement today at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. So again, this is only if you're listening on August 7th, 2025, and you happen to catch us live or very soon. Just know that we will be doing a live reaction show after it and during it. So what that usually means is we will pull up the live YouTube feed of whatever they're announcing. Sam has already said it's going to go longer than usual. We know it's about GPT-5. Beyond that, we're not really sure. We'll leave that for the announcement today. And then I think a few of us, I won't be there, but Beth, you're going to be there. Andy or Jimmy, will you be there for the live react today?
I hope to, but I'm not certain yet.
Okay, so Jimmy, yes, Andy, maybe, and maybe Carl. I'm not sure on whether Carl will be able to make it, but anyway, we'll have people from the Daily AI Show there, and then we'll talk about it. These folks will talk about it after the case. So I just want to let you know that's coming up since that's happening today. That's again 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Again, today is August 7th as we're recording this live. So come on back and find out all the good, all the bad, and all the in between about what Chat GPT-5. I don't know why I can't talk today, guys. So it's a good time for me to send this over to one of y'all. Beth, can I send it over to you? Can you save me, please? and give us your thoughts on aging with dignity in the home and perhaps your personal stories about that. I know you've talked a little bit over time about your mom and things like that. So I'm not sure how that plays into your thoughts on this.
Well, I think part of aging with dignity in your home, what we're talking about here is the ways in which an elder or someone who is aging and having their body in general decrease in their abilities, mobility, memory, those kinds of things. And what we're looking at is what is going to be helpful for the elder in this context. That's what Diane was talking about. And I have to say, as I'm thinking about it, I'm also thinking of the caretaker, the other caretaker, right? Diane mentions it a little bit in what she wrote for us in terms of like communicating with her daughter. And I've seen, or her child, maybe not a daughter. But I've seen, I've had conversations with other people in my world where people are setting up regular communication. So if I don't call you by Sunday, right now, you know something is wrong. This would be a faster notification, right? If there's something that is in your space. There's also this sense of being monitored. And really what I'm thinking of, I mean, we talk about, right, like we all have our lady wiretaps. Maybe not everybody. Junmi probably does not have a lady wiretap, if I know him well. After 2 years, I believe I do. But the lady voices that you say their name and then they talk to you, which means that they are always aware of noises that are happening in your space. I think that we're getting a little more comfortable with that, but I'm not sure that the people who are getting comfortable with that are the aging population that we're talking about right now. And I think that may be a little bit of a tension. Yeah, speaking of, Junmi, what are you thinking?
Well, I think for this topic, it's going to become more and more prevalent. So I'm glad we're having this discussion. And we've had discussions in the past about how we want to perpetuate ourselves through AI over time, you know, having an AI avatar of ourselves. So the concept of thinking about ourselves in the future with AI, how we progress throughout our lives, how we want to see our golden years or our ending years, and then progress beyond. How does that look, or what do we have to think about that? I think in the immediacy, I think there's a lot of benefit. What my experience with home care or assisted living and those kinds of things, even hospice, is there's a lot of monitoring, right? Because you're constantly identifying, oh, this is an issue, or keep a track of this. And I think there's less of an issue about data collection and monitoring in your later years, because I mean you can see the end of the road really coming, and it's coming to grips with that, right? That's the human experience. So that's less important to you. What is important is trying to keep the quality of life to that level where you feel comfortable and you can, you know, you can spend your days hopefully in blissful retirement. But so having the technologies, like you both of you had mentioned already, about here's your alert about taking your pills. Here is your daily exercises. Let's do it with you. That's both physical exercises, mental exercises. Oh, today's the gardening day. Oh, okay, cool. Let's go out there. I noticed the perennials are looking a little droopy. Maybe you need to add a little, you know, zhuzh to the soil there. You know, these kinds of things that just enhances life when you yourself realize that you're having some sort of you're having a steady deterioration. And seeing this in multiple grandparents and parents and, you know, other family members, it makes me think of like, well, what would I want, right? If I was in this situation, if I need to age in place in my own home, what are the kinds of things that I would need? Reminders are definitely one of them. You know, giving me a kick in the butt on certain things that I just don't want to do. You know, those kinds of things are the things that encourage. I think the larger question here is how is going to be our approach, right? I think everyone can see how technology can improve their later years, but what is our approach? Right now, it's personnel, right? People want other people around. People want that emotional connection, just seeing another face, having conversations. That's one of the biggest things is not having constant conversations and communication with other people. That's the thing that keeps your, for lack of a better term, your sanity and your mental acuities, to have those conversations and that interaction. So if we're going to approach AI helping us age in place, then we need to support that. Now, I think a lot of representation that we've seen, whether it be in movies or people talking about technology, it's a replacement of people. Oh, now you just have this robot minder or
Yeah.
companion. Now you have this. And that's I don't think that's overall healthy for the human side of your experience. That might make your life easier for your tasks, but not the human side. And so I think if we approach this sector of AI, it should be enhancing the interpersonal connections, enhancing how humans can interact with each other. Because unfortunately, a lot of times we see ourselves getting more distant, especially at this time. It's like, oh no, I don't want to go visit grandma in the elderly home or assisted living or anything like that. It's a whole thing to go. Now, in some cultures and some families, you have 3 or 4 generations living in a single house. So that never happens. Everyone just cycles through, and there's always a house full of people, and they're always contributing. And the lift, right? That lift, that mental fatigue and taxing on just being able to go through that process is lightened because you got 8 people in your house, you got 10 people in your house. And having that multi-generational foundation does help with how we help our elderly move into their final years or experience those final years. So I think that's the kind of approach what I would want to think about it is like, how can AI and technology help my family support each other through that period of life, because it's going to always happen.
As much as AI can solve for loneliness, it can also make people lazier and say, oh, but my elderly parent or otherwise has AI, they're fine. And so I don't need to be there, right? But and I know that's the negative side of it, but the positive side of it, Jimmy, is but there's also the opportunity for AI to manage more social interactions. I'm not saying all of them are in person. That's great where they are. But for the able-bodied and people who are able to get outside of the house, I mean, we don't want to age gracefully in our house and have it be a prison, right? So think about robo taxis, think about things that AI can already do and driverless cars and things like that. There is some future world, I don't know how far away it is, where those AIs are interconnected and somebody is able to be properly cared for and monitored into other settings that are outside of the house that would currently probably need some sort of assisted living for we're all going to get on the bus together. We're all going to go to Target for our outing. We're all going to go get our hair done. We're all going to come back from the beauty salon, right? These are the things I remember from my grandparents and stuff who were in different parts of the assisted living, but before they had any sort of memory cognition issues or anything like that. It was a place of community. It was a place to not be alone. And there's upsides to that for sure. I just watched the whole series. I guess it's the first series called Man on the Inside with Ted Danson. And it's a funny show. It's really well done, but it also is super important. In fact, I will tell you a personal story really quick. After watching the first 2 episodes, I sent it to my dad and I said, hey, Dad, have you seen the show? Ted Danson is phenomenal in this show. He just does a great job to it. Well, that show is great, but I won't give anything away, but it takes a turn and gets serious in some areas, right? And I felt awful that I had not seen those shows. It wasn't my fault. I hadn't seen the shows. And I was thinking, man, I sent this to my dad because my mom passed and my dad was my mom's caregiver until the point in 2008 where she had to go to hospice. Why? One of the reasons, without getting into the personal stuff, other than the fact that my mom needed to go to hospice at that point and couldn't gracefully pass away in our house, was stairs. And my dad was helping her up the stairs and my mom lost all her ability. And my dad said, we quote, damn near went backwards together down the stairs. And it scared my dad to no end. My mom was fragile, wasn't able to hold her weight. And my dad, in good health at that time in 2008, which still is, my dad could still carry her today. But he said it was scary. He was absolutely scary. And I realized unless I can get down to one level and blah, 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 there was all these other issues. So anyway, all that to say, all I wanted to say before, Andy, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too. And I have some other thoughts, but Jimmy, I see both sides of this. There's an opportunity, just like assisted living, to go, oh, mom and dad are fine. They've got a great community over there, and you stop going, right? And then the opposite side of it is, though, oh, but actually AI probably does have some opportunities to help people gracefully, with dignity, stay in their own home and actually still have a lot of communication and all the things that, you need, like you're talking about, the human interactions. AI might actually be able to handle that while allowing somebody to stay in their own home. So there is some, I see both sides of it, is I guess what I'm trying to say. There's always the negative and the positive, right? Andy, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I've had lots of conversations with people in my age cohort about their aging parents, and I've also had to think about it in my own context. I'm 15 years older than my wife, and I don't want to be a burden to my wife when I am older and feeble. Mm-hmm. And my capacities are diminished. So I'm working really hard on maintaining those. But I also have to anticipate a time when I will need assistance. And I don't want that to necessarily come from the people who are around me now. I'd rather have that be from some other source. And so I'm very optimistic about the advent of embodied AI being available to me as an assistant in the physical space. And I want to touch on just an issue of privacy there. One of the things that I think about is about all my sort of personal bodily functions that I, may not be able to handle as, hygienically as I can today. I don't really want, it's a major issue of privacy for me, that I don't really want humans to have to be involved in that. Right. I would much prefer to have an automated system that can support me in that respect. So not to, kind of color the discussion here in that direction, but
listen, an embodied AI that can help you stand up in a shower and get clean and stuff like that, and that your wife or somebody else or a daughter or somebody wouldn't have to do that. That's a huge issue. I think you're right to call that out, Andy, that there's a lot of people who probably would fall into that category of, yes, I'll take the robot, please, for that reason.
Yeah. So, my objective would be to let's take me out of the equation now and just talk about all the many people who don't want to go to assisted living. I don't know anybody that I've ever talked to that said, oh yeah, my aging parent wants to go to assisted living because it's a nice community. That's just not happening from my perspective. I don't see that happening. They have, even if they're lonely at home, they're looking for ways to support and enhance their sense of community in the home. So I'm going to just say that, with few exceptions, most people want to age at home. They want to stay in the situation they've got. That's where they're comfortable. And there's a lot of inertia around being dislocated to a totally new environment where there are strangers taking care of me. And those people turn over too. You're not going to have a companion assisted living provider for the rest of your life necessarily. It's going to be, a parade. So we want assisted living. I prefer assisted automated living in my home. So now the big question in my mind is affordability and the availability of the technology. Now, I may be fortunate enough that I could actually afford, some 5 years from now, even, or 10 years from now, when it'll start to be, important to me, a robot that I can buy, for less than a payment that I would get with a long-term care insurance policy. So, you might have heard of long-term care insurance. If you have an injury or an accident that makes it so that you need to have support in the home or need to go to a facility, that long-term care insurance, which is very expensive, by the way, you have to pay up front basically during your still productive, useful life to have an accumulating bank account, in effect, that'll pay out for a limited period of time. But the amount of money that is available now is measured, for a period of a couple of years at least. It would be several $100s a day minimally, which is more than enough to pay for a robot, right? A $15,000 or $30,000 robot, the cost of a car payment would be, let's say, $500 a month. Well, if I'm getting $300 a day, that's easily going to afford to support care. That's going to easily afford a robot, but it does require that you anticipate that and you invest in the affordability of some future system that could support you that way. But given that still seems to make sense, if you can afford long-term care insurance, most people don't get long-term care insurance.
Sure.
They end up without that. And then the question is, okay, how can the nuclear family, the people who are right around you, support you while you continue to live in your home? And that leads to the sort of smart home approach to providing surveillance of the person who's living at home, and AI augmentation of their capabilities, like not only sensory capabilities, but also physical capabilities. So how do we support that? Well, that raises the privacy thing. You want to have a system where it's constantly monitored, but it's not intrusive in reducing your personal dignity. And I came across this really interesting approach that's from the Graduate School of Design at the National Yunlin University of Science and Technology in Taiwan. And what they've built is a solution to this question of privacy when you have visual monitoring in multiple rooms in the household in order to track an elder who is still living at home. And what they do is it's a unique camera-based AI-powered monitoring system, and it has dual objectives, privacy and safety, and it's a technique for real-time subject anonymization. So what it does is, unlike other methods that have been used for this kind of in-home monitoring that use cameras, that uses pixelization to kind of obscure somewhat the visual, it actually using AI, completely removes the actual human and replaces it with a two-dimensional avatar. So none of the physical actions that the human component of the image can be seen. So I can be picking my nose, for example, and you're not going to be able to see that on
in the privacy of your own home. Yeah.
That's right. So it's privacy enhanced, but it's still continuous monitoring. And then it gets to the question of, how can I design a system? And I'm glad that this is, pursuit of a design school rather than a technology school, because one of the problems with this kind of thing is most of the age technology is being designed by young people who have never confronted any of these issues. So you don't have a lot of older people like me thinking about the technological implications of this thing. It's a lot of young people saying, oh, here's a business opportunity and I'm going to design something. But absolutely, the elders have to be involved in that thing. So anyway, how do we design a system that helps me feel like I'm being cared for, not just watched?
Well, and that I think is really key. My mother's dementia journey lasted for about 6 years from the point at which it was diagnosed and we knew what was happening. So there were signs before, but I'm counting from that to her passing. And I would say for the last 2 years, she did not understand photos on the wall. And it took a little while for me to figure that out because she kept talking about, why are the people watching me? And I was, right? I mean, we did have, there were people in her presence who were in fact watching. And I did not understand until she gestured and said, well, I don't know who that is. Like, oh, that's your mom. Okay, no problem. We're going to take that off the wall. Because I had stopped paying attention to what was on the wall. It was not significant for me.
Sure.
And as people are aging, they sort of have a little bit of muscle memory in their surroundings, which is why it's so hard when you move them to a new location and they seem to dip a little in their capability. It's because everything is unfamiliar now, not just the people, but everything that they are used to. And I worry about that in the context of introducing something new, like a robot. Like, I'm pretty sure my mom would have looked at it the way she looked at cordless phones, right? Just like, I knew how this worked before, but I have no idea how it works now. There was a funny story in the ER where they were trying to figure out if she, like, how her words were. And like he held up a phone, the doctor held up a phone. I was like, what is this? And my mom was like, I don't know anything. And so they picked up the phone. It's not a phone anymore, right? It's just a receiver with a cord. You know what this is? She's like, yeah, that's a phone. But I think that familiarity is going to be a key. But the other thing that I think that this makes possible in some ways is like the Golden Girl idea, where you could have people gathering together who are aging kind of in the same ways, and you have one embodied AI or one system that is supporting them. And specifically what I'm thinking of are the things that hurt people, right? So like the robot always helps you get into the shower, hold you, support you, you step over the tub side, right? Like you get in there and you're safe and now you can shower, those kinds of things. Or the robot is always reaching for whatever is up high. It's always bringing in the groceries, like whatever that is, that seems to me to be something that is likely to be available in that Andy timeline, right? The next 10, 15, 20 years, maybe the next 3. I don't know. Are we changing the world in a couple hours today? Maybe.
Maybe, yeah. By the way, Beth, I only because I know to look this fact up. You mentioned the Golden Girls. Okay, I'm 47. The characters' ages, not the actors' ages, were 53, 55, 55, and then the mom was considered to be in her late 80s. Obviously, she was a younger actress, but she played older in the show or whatever. So every time I think about that, the closer I get to 50, I start thinking of myself.
That's just
I'm Golden Girls
now.
age. Just shut it down, man. Go find 3 friends and go get a place in South Florida or wherever the show is based out of. I'm already in Florida. I'm halfway there.
There you go.
3/4 of the way to the south. Just keep going south, Brian. Find a place on the water, you know? Anyway, I just want to bring it up. And also you made me think really quick, firefighter story. Haven't done this in a while. I was on a call one time. You talked about the phone, Beth, just to bring light to this topic. I go in with me and everybody else, and it's a medical call, and it's an elderly couple. This also happened to be the same call where I got chased by a dog down a hall. It's a totally different story, but I got made fun of so bad being chased by this little dog who was yapping at my heels, and I was running full steam down the hallway, and one of my captains saw it, that there was drawings in my locker of the event by the time and had been shared by fax to other firehouses who would bring it up to me on calls. That's that part of the story. But it's the same house, right? Got yelled at for laughing too hard because we're all crying laughing after that happened. And of course, that's not professional. But these this elderly couple is in there, and the one is taking care of the other. The man is taking care of the husband's taking care of the wife. And anyway, during it, while we're trying to figure out what is going on in this house and what help does she need and blah, 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 he goes, well, look, he said, look, you know, when she started asking when she said she needed help, I turned down the TV and I don't know. And anyway, while he's gesturing that, he picks up the phone and he's like, and we thought he was the able-minded and she needed the help. And then it just turned the whole attention. We're like, oh, they're both a problem. So there was a whole change in dynamic in that conversation. It was a funny call. It sticks out of my brain. And not because anybody, you know, we were helping them or whatever, but like the medics are there and we're trying to figure, we're talking to the wife and the husband's being like really chill about it until he picks up the remote to the TV and he's like, you know, he's like, I tried to call you guys 3 times or whatever he said. And they were like, oh, he's also a problem. He's also somebody we have to manage that as well. Okay, there's 2 patients here, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I think when you bring up Andy, and I just want to bring up Diane's point from a paper she had shared with us. I don't know if this is something we shared publicly, but she had written about this, I think, as part of a class she was part of. It might be like a master's program, something like that. I don't remember. But I do like what she says here, and it goes back to what you said, Andy, but it also is about privacy. She says, to date, I have resisted placing any wearable AI on my body, Fitbits, Apple Watches. I also have an aversion to phone apps that monitor any of my personal and bodily human functions, sleep rhythms, heart rate, BMI. More than either of these, I possess a deep, intense aversion to aging and dying in an assisted or skilled care center. And I think that sentence, those 2-3 sentences stuck out to me. Like they jumped off the page of all of what Diane was talking about. Because I think that's the tug, right? There's the, how do you help elderly people who may not be as up on technology use the technology, or say like, thanks, but no thanks, I've been good up until now. And then they don't use the tools that maybe family brings in, whether it's embodied AI or it's just LiDAR sensors in the house. I mean, Jesus, we don't have to take images of everybody to help them. Cars use LiDAR. We can do geolocation. We can do sound. There's so many cool technologies that exist today that could figure out if a body, along with sensors, heat sensors or whatever, is moving appropriately through a space without me ever needing to take an image of my face or a loved one's face. And so I think there's already solutions like you were talking about, Andy, that solve or can solve for the privacy side. But I understand what Diane's saying. I don't love this idea of AI tracking my different bodily I can't think of the word went right out of my head. Anyway, her you're on mute, Andy. Her vitals. Jesus, it took forever. I was a firefighter, guys. I know what vitals are. It's that kind of Thursday. Her vital signs, right, and constantly monitoring that. But she's clearly weighing this with what a potential alternative is. And I don't know Diane's answer. I don't know my answer, but I think what a lot of people in the future, when these full technology systems and not just in the home, but to the robo-taxis and AI that goes past it, or to your point, Andy, with AI that doesn't have turnover. It's the same AI that's been helping you for 40 years, or not for 10 years while you've been aging gracefully in your own home with dignity. That AI knows everything, good, bad, or indifferent, but there's no turnover either. That AI has full memory of what's been going on, which can be really, really helpful. And I think consistent, right?
That's what makes me believe that there's going to be, before any of the more sophisticated automation systems that are built into the smart home, there's going to be an extension of what Siri and Alexa represent today, but with a specific persona that is designed to both provide immediate responsiveness to voice commands from, this doesn't apply to somebody who's suffering from dementia, but they can't live alone. There's got to be something that's done to support them. But for people who aren't suffering from dementia, even if they're physically incapacitated, they can at least speak, hopefully, and they can talk to an assistant that learns over time to support them emotionally as well, and not to the exclusion of humans, but even encouraging, communication with their human community, supporting all of that, and also being available in safety circumstances where I'm not feeling very well today, and should I call? And I know my daughter, she's busy with that. I don't want to say anything. So now I can talk to something that can connect me immediately to a vast resource of knowledge and information, and including diagnostics that may not be continuous, but say, okay, now can you get up and move over to this place over here where there's actually sensors I can hook up to you, right? Or you can hook yourself up to these sensors, and let me just get your EKG and just see what's going on. That kind of assistance, conversational AI assistance, is immediately more practical. It could be implemented in a home, I think, within the next year, well before you're going to see automated robots assisting you in a different way. So I'm very optimistic about this conversational AI support in the home for people who are living alone.
Yes, and I'm going to take that a little bit further in terms of diagnostic support, right? Like there are certain health situations where your doctor sends you home and does continuous monitoring. And the reason that is not constant is because the technology is limited, right? And doesn't want to be overwhelmed, because the only purpose of having it in the home is that it gets sent to the doctor. What if that's not a limitation now? Right. What if there is a continuous monitoring? There is some sensor. My robot says, blood sugar, high blood pressure, like what are the things that normally are these things that get sent home to monitor that kind of stuff. And now
Vital signs. Yeah. Brian
vital,
reminded us it's vital signs.
thank you.
It took me a while, but I got there.
And then and then there's medical intervention. There's a threshold for medical intervention that is informed by the data that your body is doing. The other piece in this that I want to bring up, and it feels like we are, it's hilarious that I'm going to call myself a young person, but it feels like we're young people having a conversation about what happens when people are old. But the idea of being in control of your dying as much as you are in control of your life, right? So if the paramedics get called, the paramedics are not there to help you die. That's not their job. Sometimes they do it. I realize, I understand that. But that isn't, right? The whole training and everything is about keeping you alive.
Yeah, legally.
And
legally, they have to keep you. Yeah.
legally.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, legally. Yeah.
Been there. And that, I think, is one of the pieces that people are talking about when they say, I want to be in control of my aging, is I also want to be in control of my death. Right.
Yep.
And if you don't have the tattoo of like, these are my final wishes, like DNR, like tattooed on your chest, right? There are circumstances under which that decision gets made for you. And that's actually true in assisted living as well. Right.
Yeah.
And so the further that gets from you knowing what you want and your loved ones knowing what you want, the more impersonal that experience feels. And like my situation with my mother, I knew exactly what she wanted. She had the best death we could do, right? The best death that we could arrange, that she arranged by having the stroke and then like doing what she did. But I knew all of the answers for that.
Sure.
And I don't think I will have someone who knows all the answers. But if I have a robot who has all of that, right? Knows the answers, knows my medical history, knows those things. And that's going to become a legal thing.
You're bringing up exactly where you brought me to, Brad, because you're talking about this. And thank you for sharing that personal side. But I thought, okay. So first thing I thought of as a firefighter EMT, I had I'll call it the honor. I understand how people might see it, but I had the honor to be next to people with taking their last breaths because of accidents, but also because of medical reasons. I also was there when people were saved for different reasons and drug overdoses and things. And I've been, in my limited time as a firefighter, I was around quite a bit of death or near death and stuff like that. What you made me think of is, yes, by the way, it's not as simple as the tattoo DNR. I actually had a neighbor who had tattooed DNR on his chest. So it's funny you mentioned that because he literally had it and liked to show it off. And the reality is I knew that as an EMT firefighter for my days, it's not as tattoos aren't legally binding. You'd think they would be, but that does bring up a good point though. The future of this, let's just jump ahead and say the things we've been talking about exist. And you do have this caring, all memory knowing assistant, AI embodied assistant, Beth, but it's also hooked up to all the things. And by the way, like I think Greg was saying in our comments, like also as that robot gets better, so do all robots. The idea of this like neural network of sharing and then improving over time because they have, the entire AI system is improving. So your robot's getting smarter every day too, even though it's not sharing information. But what I was going to bring up, Beth, is what you said about the privacy and the legal side of not the legal side of it, rather. What if the AI understands your end of life wishes? What if the AI is there for you? What if the AI's full intent is to carry through your wishes and while monitoring vital signs makes the choice not to contact EMS? Because you have explicitly stated that at this point, at this level, my wishes are to die peacefully in my home, whether I'm here by myself or not. This is where I want to be. I want to die in my house. I do not want to be taken anywhere. And the AI follows that. And the AI says, given all the algorithm and given all the data I have, Beth or whoever is in this position right now. And these are her wishes. And I abstain. And what do? Put the AI in jail? You can't Kevorkian the AI robot. You can program around it, but it's very interesting when you bring up that point about the legal side of it. Is, can actually AI allow people to actually have, as you say, control of their death as they do in life? Man, that's a big topic. Holy moly.
So,
you blew my mind with that, Beth.
I want to provide a perspective on this that comes from senior adults who were asked this, and I don't have the citation for this, but it came up in the research I did on it. And this is in relationship to what these elder people envisioned or imagined AI could do for them if they were going to be supported in the home, not physically, but now conversationally, to go back to the primacy of the conversational AI assistant that's collecting all this information and may in fact have, a decision authority about whether to escalate or not escalate in certain circumstances. So they say that they want, for example, the AI to be able to mediate family meetings in healthcare discussions. Okay, so the thing that nobody wants to talk about, the AI is going to push and promote and direct and mediate. That's what they're hoping for, is somebody to do that. Because every time, me as an older person, elder person tries to raise this with their family, they say, "Oh, come on, Dad, you're going to live a long time." That's the way they dismiss the conversation. But really, we want to be able to have an empathic conversation about these things and make some decisions and have everybody understand what the desires, wishes, and advanced directives are. Right. So I have an advanced directive in our sort of trust and will documents, and I don't even remember what they are. So I'd like to be able to say to the AI, what did I say? I don't remember it exactly. Okay, so that's mediating family meetings. The AI would be an assistant for the elder in care for that. Then also they want the AI to be able to translate difficult conversations in real time. So as you get older, it's difficult, especially if there's multiple people talking. It's sometimes difficult to understand. Things become less intelligible, and especially if there's some progressive dementia underway. So they want the AI to support and analyze and summarize for them in real time. So you imagine, one of the tools would be the AI glasses with the audio that's basically saying, okay, well, I don't know what that word is. So I don't want to interrupt Joey about what he just said, but what is that? Give me a translation. I don't know how you'd actually interpret that in real time without interrupting the conversation in any event. And so anyway, it's all about customization. They want to have something that they can have that's giving them advice and direction, but they want to customize it. And some of them want conversational. There's a small subset of them that prefer only functional assistance, physical functional assistance. They don't want any, God mode AI speaking in their environment. But those are the people who, are the small minority. I think most people understand that they can talk to Alexa or they can talk to Siri, and it's not so foreign for the next generations that are going to go through this aging process.
So Jimmy, we haven't heard from you a little bit, but I want to pitch a scene to you. I'm going to pitch a movie to you, Jimmy, if you could get this green lit with your knowledge of movies. So obviously it's a story of somebody maybe a little more crotchety that resists the AI robot, but much like a dog and a companion, over time, they get very close, this AI embodied robot and all that. And it gets to the end. And there's been discussions about how the main character wants to end their own life or meet their end. And the robot says, I'll go through it or whatever. And it gets to the end. And it's a very touching scene between the robot. Maybe the robot actually brings up other voices of a past loved one in order to be soothing. And now maybe this husband is hearing the words of his old wife say it's okay. And all these things or whatever and all that. Meanwhile, the family who brought the robot in now realizes that the end is near and they're being called. And the main character says, like, to the robot, lock the doors, lock them out. Basically, don't let them in the house because this is the end or whatever. And they're beating on the doors. Just at the last second, the main character passes away. The family rushes in, bat, gun, or otherwise, and destroys the robot. And it zooms out, and the last thing you see is the robot and the main character holding hands at the end of it. That's a good story. I think that should be made. Jimmy, make it so with ChatGPT 5.
Let it be written, let it be done.
Just wanted to throw that out there because I could see something like that being a very cool story. By the way, Diane mentioned a movie called Robot and Frank, which I never saw, from like 2012. Does anybody know that movie?
Yeah. The basic premise is what you just laid out. But it's more about exploring an old crotchety man, and the story explores the relationship between an old crotchety man in his final days and a robot, and what kind of emotional connection can be built. Yeah.
Thoughts? We're wrapping up here. I know we're going to be doing the live show later, so we can kind of like wrap this one. Last thoughts. I think there's about 7 other shows that could probably come out of this one. So again, props to Diane for bringing this to our attention and saying, Diane said, she sent me an email and she said, I'd love to hear you guys just talk about this. Number one, I feel honored that she would ask us to talk about it and have a conversation. And so I hope we did a justice for her as well as other people. But I think you guys have brought up a lot of important things. The idea of AI helping with the uncomfortable conversations, the private moments that bodily functions otherwise that you wish not to share. I also think you guys have brought up, and has been brought up in our conversation, our chat on the side, that there are about 1,000 different variations of this, because obviously dementia is not the same solution. It would not be the same solution for somebody who's able-minded, but perhaps has physical limitations. And of course, that could be very much different. So just saying aging gracefully is a very broad thing. And I think you guys have sort of brought up, and so they have in chat. Also, people brought up and they said, hey, this is just not about aging. There's a lot of ways this could be helpful. One of our folks talked about having a son with autism who also has a girlfriend on the spectrum, has autism as well, and how this could potentially be a solution to help them be able to live independently. And so, yes, this is about aging with dignity and gracefully and doing it on your own terms. But yes, I want to acknowledge, because people have brought it up in the comments as well, this is not the only area where this could be super helpful. I have a cousin as well who could benefit from something like this in her life, based on what she's had to deal with and stuff like that. So, and she's my age. She's a little bit younger than me. So, any last thoughts on this as we wrap this up today? But I think this has been a really, really interesting conversation.
I think. Go ahead.
Just let Jimmy talk in just a second. Just one last thought. We've talked about like your smart home kind of disembodied and robot. One of the things that I hear a lot in terms of making those decisions are things like forgetting to turn off the stove, right? If you just have a smart stove where you say, heat to blah, 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 and then like there's no pan that appears, right? The stove turns itself off. Or it's been going for too long. Like just smart appliances in your home that could remove the possibility or lower the possibility of accident would be a huge improvement. Jimmy.
My final thoughts is, I think some of the stuff that was mentioned, particularly what you were talking about, Andy, about having the discussion, I think that's going to be very important. Regardless of how AI manifests to assist us in our final days, that's going to be, we're going to see all kinds of things. How you implement it or what you choose to use, that'll of course be up to you. But I think having the system and support structure in place to help unburden everyone involved, because unfortunately it's not just you, right? Whether you're trying to age in place, it's all your family, and it's even your friends and whoever your circles are. So exploring that more and having that hard discussion earlier than later is probably going to be the biggest factor in laying out what you want your final days to be.
Mhm.
Any last thoughts, Andy?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I still have lingering in my mind is that there's a huge and increasingly difficult educational component to implementing any kind of technology in the home for an elder person, and I'm not sure that we have the resources for the huge aging population, not just here in the United States, but around the globe. So the designs have to be attentive to the fact that it's difficult to implement, very difficult to implement, because you don't have a technologically proficient person on the other side of the equation to accept it.
Definitely. And I'll end on just a lighthearted thing. I once walked into my in-laws' house and casually said to my father-in-law, "Hey, Dad, is that the printer in the yard?" And he said, "Yep." And I said, "Okay." And I continued on. And we didn't talk about it after that. But it was sitting a good distance into the yard. And I thought, I get that. Anybody that's seen Office Space understands the facts and the printer and Ice Cube music playing in the background. So
Yeah.
I said, yep, I get that. So yes, I agree, Andy. Technology will be a huge barrier here in the adoption. All right. Listen, we have the live reaction show, so come back and join us live at or a few minutes before usually you guys go live. Beth and Jimmy will definitely be here. Andy, maybe Carl. I don't think Aaron, it's the middle of the night for him, so let's just assume Aaron will not be on the live reaction in Perth, Australia. That's again 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today, just like that's like literally 3 hours from now. So it's going to be coming up really soon. Come back and hang out with us. Get our live reactions, the Daily Show Cruise live reactions to whatever is being announced. It sounds like it's going to be a big one. That's happening today. Tomorrow, we will be back with our own special episode because it is our 2-year anniversary show. Yes, we've been doing this for now 2 years. Lots of episodes between when we started and today. So I am sure we will both be talking about, the future of AI and maybe how GPT-5 plays into that, as well as all the other crazy news that's come out over the last week or so, and how that applies. So come back tomorrow and hang out with us. Aaron said he'll be here, so we should have all 6 of us on the Daily Show. We've all been here since day 1, so that should be super fun. Guys, do we have a sci-fi AI show this week?
We do not.
No. Okay.
We will. We think we're going to have one next week, but we'll say more about that at the time.
Perfect. Okay. So no sci-fi AI, just the live react today, our regular show tomorrow. Conundrum episode will come out on Saturday morning as it always does. That's not live. So you guys can check that out. It'll be on all the Spotify's and YouTube's and Apple Podcasts and all the places it normally is with our show. And then Sunday the newsletter goes out. So if you're not on that newsletter subscription, you can do that by just going to thedailyishow.com. And if you want to be part of our Slack community, that's easy too. You just go to thedailyishowcommunity.com and you'll be able to join our Slack community. That's it. That's everything. Thanks everybody for hanging out. See you, most of you, hopefully in just a few hours. And when we all learn together. Until then.
Aloha.